We are under Israeli military restrictions in terms of some of the things that we can film, but it's important to be in there. What a slow drive for the president as he approaches his golf club.
4 more years!
Free wherever you get your news. I'm Mark Stone and I'm Sky's correspondent based here in Washington, D.C.
There's always more to the news than a headline. We want to discover, to delve a little deeper, to find out what's really going on. Explanation, analysis, the people at the heart of every story. I'm Neil Patterson, and this is the Sky News Daily Podcast. So, by the end, we'll hopefully all understand what's going on in the world just that little better. Available wherever you get your podcasts.
I'm Stephen Murphy and I'm Sky's Ireland correspondent based here in Dublin.
The waters of Ireland and Britain should be home to great white sharks.
If there are great white sharks in this area, there's no reason they wouldn't come here to feed. It's basically a buffet on a beach. This could be not only a record-breaking storm, but potentially the most dangerous storm ever to hit Ireland.
Welcome back. You are watching the press preview, a first look at what's on the front pages as they arrive. In the next half hour, we'll see what's making the headlines with the news editor at the Press Association, Theo Usherwood, and journalist and broadcaster Carolyn Quinn. So let's see what's on some of those front pages for you now. Well, on the front of the Metro, Rachel Reeves denied lying after she was accused of talking up a £30 billion hole in government finances to justify tax increases. Meanwhile, on the front of the Mail, reports that Nigel Farage has reported the Chancellor to the ethics watchdog over the claims that there was a black hole in the public's finances. Reports that the besieged Chancellor will face her second sleaze probe in a month, also on the front of the Telegraph. Meanwhile, The Times reports ministers are accusing the Chancellor of misleading the Cabinet by allegedly repeatedly highlighting a downgrade in productivity forecasts in Cabinet meetings. The Guardian leads with the Prime Minister's response to critics. Starmer said it will take Labour years to deliver their bold economic plan. But the Express leads on Kemi Badenoch's calls for the Chancellor to resign or be sacked. The opposition leader quoted as saying if Miss Reeves had any decency, she would have gone by now. On the front of The Sun, reports that Premier League footballers are being targeted by professional burglars who steal luxury items to order and pass them on to a group known as the Gucci Gang. The Mirror has launched their Christmas appeal to raise money for seriously ill children who could benefit from having access to pioneering assisted and sensory technology. The Star leads on the news that Rob Burrows' widow has backed the paper's campaign to have her husband's best friend, Kevin Singfield, knighted for his MND fundraising. OK, well, we are joined tonight by Theo Usherwood and Carolyn Quinn. Welcome to both of you. Let's start, shall we, with the budget. We've been starting with the budget for, it seems like, months and months and months. We finally had the budget, and it's still making top news. So, front page of the Daily Mail, and this is as regards Nigel Farage. Reeves must face sleaze probe over budget lies, which is the word that's being used, and he's reported the Chancellor to the ethics watchdog. Theo?
Yes, Nigel Farage has written to the Independent Advisor on Ministerial Standards, that's Sir Laurie Magnus, saying that it deserves this warrants an investigation, that the Chancellor, in his view, lied to the British public, to voters, about the state of the nation's finances. The Telegraph has, I think quite helpfully just a bit more detail on this, pointing to the ministerial code, which of course Sir Laurie will be looking at to weigh up if he decides to take on the investigation as to whether the Chancellor will have breached that, which says, and I'm quoting here, that ministers have to be as open as possible with Parliament and the public. Meanwhile, of course, we've just pointed to the Times newspaper, which is leading on its lead story as disquiet amongst cabinet members, that they feel that the Chancellor wasn't open with them. And of course, this goes back to the fact that back in October, the OBR, the Office of Budgetary Responsibility, revised its numbers, which actually found that there was £4.2 billion worth of headroom, and that the figures weren't as bad as all that. Nevertheless, of course, at the beginning of November, the Chancellor came out and said that she had to be prepared to raise taxes. I think it's the investigation, the Lori Magnus investigation, which, of course, he works closely with the Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, and that is the one that I think is potentially the most, the most pressure we're going to see on Keir Starmer to grant Sir Lori the right to carry out that investigation. And I think that's the one that could be the most damaging, because if he comes back and finds that, if he firstly does the investigation and secondly comes back and finds that the Chancellor has broken the ministerial code, then it's very difficult to see how she can stay in her job.
Because she's accused of knowingly exaggerating the state of the UK finances. Now, she probably didn't anticipate that when she agreed to do interviews, a round of interviews this morning, that the key question would be, did you lie? She's been forced to deny that she has lied. But, of course, people are now saying, well, can we trust the Chancellor? And it feeds into this perception that the public have been misled, because in the run-up to the general election, Labour ministers were insisting that this would not be a government that was going to be a high-tax, high-spend government. And yet now, Nigel Farage, the opposition leader, and others, possibly some within the cabinet, are wondering, where does this go now? It's the sort of question that she doesn't want to face. She wanted to be able to talk about the beneficial things that had come out of the budget, the minimum wage going up, the energy bill help, the fact that rail fares have been frozen. But it's this focus now on the fact that she has raised £26 billion in tax, 16 billion of which is going on welfare, and the argument is that she was not clear with the public that she needed to raise that much money to put that much into welfare.
But what you're suggesting is that she was somewhat surprised by the question of did you lie? I don't know how, because it was on the front page of every paper. And initially with Trevor Phillips this morning, he was expecting a simple answer, and she didn't just say no. When pushed, she said, of course not.
Yes, and I watched that part of Trevor's interview. It's a very good interview. But it did, you're right to point out, Julian, it did seem to take the Chancellor by surprise, and that there's some, I don't know, for whatever reason, the Treasury a little bit and those around the Chancellor didn't seem to be prepared for that question and just how bad things are right now. Now, of course, Keir Starmer is, I think this is interesting in The Guardian, is he's going to be looking to get back on the front foot tomorrow by delivering a speech promising to renew Britain and that there are no quick fixes and deregulation. But what I think is interesting about the fact is that the Prime Minister, for now at least, is saying, OK, well, we're going to navigate through this particularly difficult situation that the government finds, that the top of government finds itself in, together. They are still. Keir Starmer, I think tomorrow is going to put forward the fact that he is in a team, him and his Chancellor are in a team. It would be, and critics and opponents of the Prime Minister know full well that if Keir Starmer loses his Chancellor, any Prime Minister loses their Chancellor, that is very, very damaging, and it's very difficult to come back from.
And Carolyn, do you think that show of unity, because they've been quite open about the fact that he knew what was in the budget, he knew about the briefings from the OBR, do you think that strengthens the Chancellor, or does it weaken the Prime Minister?
Well, it certainly ties the two of them together, but wouldn't it be rather surprising if he wasn't going out to bat for his Chancellor tomorrow? Although you would question why is there a need for that, because they have now developed a situation where they've caused even more problems and questions to be asked about the budget. He wants to focus on the fact that there is long-term thinking as well, because she and he have been accused of short-term fixes. You know, problem arises, OBR says there's no money, or the perception is that they've said that, so let's plug it. He's now trying to turn attention onto what Labour are saying are their long-term plans: infrastructure spending, deregulation, further welfare reform and closer European ties. Whether that will take the attention away from the current problems, I think probably not. But the other long-term issue, of course, is that most of the tax rises that were announced in the budget are for further along the road, aren't they? For about 2028, so a year before the election. So unless something comes along and growth materialises in the way that the government would like, it seems that longer term we may have the developments that Keir Starmer wants to look at, but also there will be those tax rises.
And also deflecting from all of the budget talk of the Chancellor lying is made worse with this Ethics Committee investigation. That means it's not going away.
No, and of course the Prime Minister is going to be giving a speech tomorrow, and the Guardian's trailed it. But you know, the first question when it comes to journalists in the room, and I'm sure your Beth Wrigley, Sky News' Beth Wrigley will be there, will be: are you going to grant? Are you going to order Sir Laurie to carry out an investigation into whether the Chancellor breached the ministerial code? And it becomes very difficult because when you're in this situation, you know, the Prime Minister is outlining, you know, another relaunch of his clear mission to renew the economy. But it's very difficult when you're trying to put out one fire. And of course, only a couple of weeks ago, there was that huge row between Number 10 and Wes Streeting, the Health Secretary, over alleged plot coup. You know, to go from one to the other, and then, you know, what comes next? It's very difficult to get your narrative, if you're in government, you know, out there, because the only questions people are going to be asking about will be, questions about whether the Chancellor lied or misled the British public.
And then, of course, Keir Starmer will give that speech tomorrow. Then later in the week, the Treasury Committee will be hearing not just from the Chancellor, as would normally happen, but also from Richard Hughes, the chairman of the OBR. So it will be interesting to hear his views on what's happened. But of course, they'll probably want to ask him as well about the reasons behind the OBR information getting into the public domain a little bit too early.
Indeed. And staying with the other issues that the government is having to deal with, this is overhauling of jury trials. Plans to scrap jury trials for most crimes will undermine free speech. This is the warning to David Lammy. Who's saying this and why, Theo?
So this is the campaigners that the Justice Secretary's proposals, the paper's reporting, will make it more likely that those who are in court on free speech charges, if without a jury trial, will be convicted. And it's coming from the Free Speech Union. Lord Toby Young, is director there, and he's warning that against these plans, which were mooted by, where we came out in a leak last week from the Justice Secretary that he was in favour of abolishing jury trials for Crown Court cases, excluding, of course, murder, attempted murder, and the most serious charges. The Treasury seemed a little bit last week to sort of, sorry, not the Treasury, the Minister of Justice last week seemed to be a little bit more cautious. I was listening to one, I think it was Sarah Sackman, who was making the point in the Commons that no final decision had been made.
Yeah, because they'd asked Sir Brian Leveson to draw up a range of proposals, and the leak suggested that it had gone much further than he proposed. And today it looks as if that is going to be confirmed.
Okay.
Yeah.
Carolyn, Theo, we must leave it there for the moment. Thank you very much. We are going to take a break. Coming up, we'll be discussing the front of the Times, why it takes £250,000 to raise a child. Yes, that is the story. There's no misprint.
I'm Neville Lazarus, and I'm Sky's reporter based in Delhi. Over the next 45 days, an estimate 400 million Hindu pilgrims are expected to converge here in Prayagraj on the banks of the holy river Ganga and Yamuna.
Jubilation in the streets, while some emotional.
This is a political victory for Prime Minister Modi and his Hindu Nationalist Party. We take you to the heart of the story in the largest democracy in the world.
Go ahead, back white jacket.
Deborah Haynes from Sky News. He called you Daddy earlier.
No, he did it very affectionate. Daddy, you're my daddy. Thank you.
Leicester is on its knees.
They've ripped the soul out of my factory and there's nothing left.
It is eerily quiet.
It's constantly on the brink of capacity.
There's overcrowding. It's not a new thing.
It's rough.
There's nothing to hide. Why aren't international journalists allowed in?
Are you worried about escalation?
Of course I'm worried about escalation, which is why my focus is on de-escalation.
The region, I think, is on edge because they are anticipating a retaliation.
Iran retaliates for the US attacks.
Founding principle of the alliance, that an attack on one is an attack on all.
Could Putin attack another NATO country within 5 years?
Those vivid colours of summer have faded now, but the trauma for everyone who witnessed what happened here hasn't gone away.
Devastation. No, we lost 3 of them.
Ruda Cabana's guilty pleas mean they won't have to relive what they saw in court, but everyone here tells you they'll carry it for the rest of their lives. You see people running red lights time after time after time. This is an offence that sometimes has the most awful of consequences.
When you speed through a pedestrian crossing, there is a risk that you could batter somebody to death. She filled our lives with light. She was innocent, she was happy.
I'm Greg Milam and I'm Sky's Chief North of England correspondent.
He had a beautiful death. He fell asleep in my arms. This is about a dying person's choice to die peacefully when they want to, on their terms.
We are under Israeli military restrictions in terms of some of the things that we can film, but it's important to be in there. What a slow drive for the president as he approaches his golf club.
4 more years!
Free wherever you get your news. I'm Mark Stone and I'm Sky's correspondent based here in Washington, DC.
There's always more to the news than a headline. We want to discover, to delve a little deeper, to find out what's really going on. Explanation, analysis, the people at the heart of every story. I'm Neil Patterson, and this is the Sky News Daily Podcast. So, by the end, we'll hopefully all understand what's going on in the world just that little better. Available wherever you get your podcasts.
Welcome back. You are watching the press preview, still with me, Theo Ashwood and Carolyn Quinn. So, Theo, your party is going to keep its name.
Yes, this is Jeremy Corbyn's, of course, the former Labour leader. Your Party, it started, I think, as an accident, if I remember correctly. It was just called Your Party, and then I think Zara Sultana, if I remember correctly, said it's not called Your Party, we've yet to choose a name, but the name has stuck. They were going to have an open vote for people to register a member and then, you know, as a member and then choose the name. But it's stuck, and they've decided that they're going to, that's the way it's going to be. And they're not going to have a leader. They're going to have a committee, and a non-NP is going to be the chair of that executive committee. So that, of course, means that Jeremy Corbyn, who was the founder of this party, isn't going to be able to lead it. I'd said previously, if Your Party could get its act together, it'd be a real threat to Keir Starmer, and that if is working very hard at the moment. I think the Greens, you know, what you've seen the Greens doing under Zach Polansky in terms of the surge ahead, we saw that, I think it was a result up in Macclesfield where we saw that huge rise in their popularity. I think that's where the action on the left of British politics is right now. And this Your Party I'm not sure is where it's at.
Well, it's a bit of a shambolic start to their conference, isn't there, with Zara Sultana not even attending to hear the inaugural speech from Jeremy Corbyn.
There's been a bit of a falling out, hasn't there, between those two? And it has prompted mockery from people, and I think probably quite a surge of relief in Labour quarters, because, as you say, they were rather concerned at the start that there may be a bigger impact, because, of course, Jeremy Corbyn does have a personal following among a lot on the left.
And the conference itself was well attended.
Yes. So there are people who are looking for this sort of politics. Now, whether they feel that they get it with now a leader that perhaps isn't as prominent as Jeremy Corbyn, the interesting thing will be whether the Greens now do try to reach out to Corbyn himself. Now, that would be an interesting tie-up, wouldn't it? Whether Jeremy Corbyn would want to come into the Green orbit. I think we need to keep an eye on that.
Or possibly a coalition between your party and the Greens?
Or an agreement not to put, not to field candidates up against each other. That's the likeliest thing, I think, rather than a merger of any sort.
Interesting. One to watch. We shall see. The Times. Theo, why it takes $250,000 to raise a child?
Yes, they've got a platform has done some research, an investment platform has done some research, and it's found that on average parents spend £13,830 a year on their children, and the most expensive period is between 15 and 18 when parents spend £65,016 added together, and apparently that's a lot of that is on personal hygiene. Who knew? But added all together, it equates to £250,000 to raise a child. I have to say, I'm not surprised by this at all.
No, I think it's an underestimate, actually, personally.
And the second priciest period, toddler years, with a bill of $53,701. I think it's quite interesting. Further down, economists are suggesting that rising costs have contributed to the falling birth rate in England and Wales, which hit a record low in 2025.
Which leads us on to the Daily Telegraph again. Labour making it easier to claim child benefits. Can we make a segue there?
I think it's probably the more serious sort of part of, for those who are watching this evening. So this is, under the current rules, parents can claim for child benefit for children over 16, between 16 and 19, who spend at least 12 hours a week either at school or doing unpaid training. But that requirement, according to the Telegraph, which it came out in the budget, buried in the budget documents last week, and obviously with everything else that's going on, wasn't picked up until today by the newspaper. That requirement is being lifted so that for any parents of children between 16 and 19, I should say, with an illness or disability will automatically be eligible for the benefit. I personally think that's probably about right. And if you have a child who isn't at school or isn't in training, you are supporting that child. And it would make sense that I think you'd probably be most in need of that benefit in order to help them get out and try and do something with their life.
Theo and Caroline, we must leave it there. We've run out of time. Thank you both.
I'm Stephen Murphy, and I'm Sky's Ireland correspondent based here in Dublin.
The waters of Ireland and Britain should be home to great white sharks.
If there are great white sharks in this area, there's no reason they wouldn't come here to feed. It's basically a buffet on a beach. This could be not only a record-breaking storm, but potentially the most dangerous storm ever to hit Ireland.
What might happen if Russia attacked the UK?
This is clearly an enormous show of force. It is definitely out of the ordinary.
We ran a war game with former ministers back in the hot seat.
Ben Wallace.
Amber Rudd.
Jack Straw.
It's the kind of war game that's genuinely tested inside government.
The Russians are signalling that there may be an attack.
Russia knows our weaknesses, but do you? I'm Deborah Haynes. From Sky News and Tortoise, this is The War Game. Listen wherever you get your podcasts.
This is Sky News at 11 o'clock. The headlines this evening. The Chancellor denies accusation she misled the public about